Hello and welcome to the behind the scenes of Imaginary Warzone.
Action! Come on! Oh! Beautiful. Nice job. Great job.
So glad you watched the whole thing, and now we're going to talk about how hard it was to make and why. So we've shot this scene, or we've tried to shoot this scene 3 times now, and each time something's been wrong. First time, it was dogs.
There's like 1,000 dogs over there and a bunch of people. So there's no way we can pull audio from this, which is really unfortunate because I hate doing ADR.
These construction guys behind me decided they were going to start dismantling the, what do you call it, the guardrail on the parking? Guardrail next to the parking lot? Yeah, you can't plan for stuff like that. We had a lot of very unexpected and unforeseen challenges with filming this whole thing. It was more film days than we've ever used filming anything before. And part of that was because things weren't always cooperating the way that they should have.
So it's nearly 8 o'clock now, and it's still snowing like crazy. This ensures at least that no one will bother us. No one's going to come to the park, but can't film while it's snowing.
The weather was super uncooperative, and on top of that, getting people to show up at certain times, we didn't exactly have a budget.
You're all gonna pull out weapons and start firing, and they're gonna dive for cover. One thing we want to avoid for the visual effects and post is too much of this.
I'm gonna be diving. I don't want to be
Because if we're doing like that, you're moving around a lot. We're gonna have to track all of those muzzle flares. So keeping it kind of controlled will make it easier on us.
If you have a rifle, it's not automatic.
It's boom, boom. It's a shotgun.
So, a lot of unforeseen challenges here, and you will always have those on all of your film shoots forever. But the way you respond and react to them, sometimes you just have to wait and film another day. But a lot of times there are more innovative solutions, such as changing the script, which we did several times.
You're gonna say
LRM or whatever.
Yeah, and you're just in disbelief.
And then into the.
It's really you. What are you talking about? And then you're gonna say, we thought you were dead. Action.
It's you. It's really you. We thought you were dead.
Dead? Why would you think I was dead?
He told us that you weren't coming back.
Perfect, guys. That's great.
So, creative solutions, be innovative, think outside the box, and if all else fails, do it another day.
Just quit.
Or just quit.
That's Landon's advice.
Just quit.
Your advice is find an innovative solution, be a creative solution to your problem. Your advice is quit.
Yeah.
If it's too hard.
But honestly, it's like 50-50, you know?
Sometimes you have to quit.
Sometimes you have to quit.
Sometimes you find a way. Yeah, we wanted one more shot. If the sun is out, I think it's going to be out. But we'll see what we got.
It's a compositing shot.
What's up? We just learned another thing that sucks. We just shot this entire scene at 1080p instead of 4K. And a low bit rate instead of a high one.
It's still a higher bit rate than 7D footage.
Over time, we had noticed that we get comments all the time. People saying, we want more Imaginary Warzone. In fact, I think it had been almost exactly 1 year since the last one we had done. And we were still getting people saying, like, even on unrelated videos, like, this is my favorite series that you guys do. And so we're like, all right, we like you guys. If you ask us enough for something, we will deliver. So we all got together and we brainstormed what the plot outline should be of the series. We were originally talking about maybe doing 3 episodes, and then we were joking around like, wouldn't it be so funny if we did like an episode 3 part 2, kind of like Harry Potter 7 part 2, or like Mockingjay part 2, or whatever everyone's doing nowadays. We outlined kind of like the basic structure. We came up with a story that revolved around the established characters that we already had. and kind of playing off of the known personalities of those characters. So we had decided, we plotted out some dates that we wanted to shoot, and we were actually in the middle of working on kind of a commercial project for somebody at the time, and Mike had finished his part of that kind of ahead of schedule, and so he had the availability immediately to just start working on the concept for Imaginary Warzone.
Because this was going to be a relatively short series, there was only going to be 4 episodes, and each of them were going to be roughly 10 minutes long. I knew that there wasn't a ton of time to develop all of the characters. And considering the fact that we had already seen a lot of interaction in the previous videos between Kyle and Todd, and kind of already knew where they stood in terms of their relationship with one another, the fact that Todd is evil and Kyle is good, I thought it would be a lot more interesting to focus on sort of a neutral character, more or less, somebody who stands in the middle between those two, and to allow that character to be the hinge on where the tide turns between those two forces. One other thing we did is we had a pretty major scene change in the 3rd episode. So originally we were going to have Skylar and Kyle be confronted at the Tree with Two Butts by this Halloween costume that Mason Alexander used to wear. So it was going to be kind of like a phantom character. It was supposed to look really similar to like a ring wraith from Lord of the Rings. And he was going to come out, this costume was going to come out and speak with them and confront them and ask them a lot of the questions and try to determine their worthiness, so to speak. But we ended up shooting it that way. And we had some other problems with it. One, you know, all 3 of us were on screen at one time in a lot of the shots, and so the camera was very static and not very cinematic. And I didn't like the cinematography of the scene the way we originally shot it. The lighting was also pretty harsh and right in the face of Landon and Case, and I really didn't like that look. So that was one problem. But the other problem was that the scene just almost entirely lacked humor. There was like a 4 or 5 minute stretch without any jokes or anything funny in it. So we eventually decided to do away completely with the scene as we originally had it and as we had it here in the script. We decided to make the Tree with Two Butts be the character that they actually confront, so that I could stay behind the camera and still get some movements and pans and tilts and make it look better. But also, it's just a lot funnier, I think, in the end, to have the tree be speaking to them. And to have Skylar run up and stab it straight up with butthole. You know, those kinds of things really helped to inject some humor back into it. So run us through some of the toughest visual effects that we did.
This is one fairly difficult visual effect. It was at least something we had never done before. For the candy in the cave, we wanted it to be, we wanted it to look as real as possible. We purchased these packs from Turbo Squid that people had modeled out super low poly, just candy bars. We were able to just, you know, throw them in the air in 3ds Max in like clusters, and you can see there's just Hershey's, Kit Kat, Twix, and it repeats quite a bit, and just this scattered, just like, you know, group of candy above an object, above this lump that we gave a texture, a seamless repeating texture of the same candy. We took all of these and we threw them into a physics simulation. And if I run this, it will drop them, gravity will take effect, they'll fall, and here you'll see them start to move. They'll fall, they'll hit this object, which we established with, it has quite a bit of friction, so it's pretty grippy. So these candy bars, they'll just hit and kind of hold on to it, and they'll have a shape, so that way we don't have to do like a million candy bars and drop them to get like the shape we want. We create the shape, drop them just enough to cover the surface of that object. And then as you see, like, it lands, it hits, they're kind of bouncing and things. And then we just stop the simulation at a certain point when they all look like they're settled enough. And we have a mound of candy. It works well enough that we can now render out a single frame of this candy, And then what we did was we brought that into Photoshop. And then we would take a few of these images we had rendered with our Candy physics pile, and we would just kind of layer them together. And then through that layering, we'd basically create a matte painting out of it. We would paint in shadows, kind of add some depth to it a little bit, and stagger the layers so that it looked believably like it was actually in the environment. So one of the other major effects that we had, that we for a long time weren't even sure how we were going to do it, was the tree with two butts. Honestly, one challenge is like, these need to look like butts, not like the tree with like two sets of boobs, or the tree with like, you know, who knows, like just weird cancerous growths. Like they need to like be butt-like. So what we ended up doing was the camera moves weren't, again, they weren't like really elaborate camera moves. It was moving camera, but so what that meant was if we would just grab a still frame of an individual, you know, shot of the tree that was going to stay in frame like the whole time, and then we could track that back into to the shot in After Effects. So that left us the freedom to work in Photoshop. And what the hardest angle for the tree with two butts was this angle, the one where it's looking up at the tree with two butts. Again, it's like, it's one of those shots I wish I could just completely redo, but the tree with two butts from down here, it was tough to get like the proper butt like definition and shading and still like match the seams and everything. So this ended up being like quite a few layers of color correction, and what we ended up doing was we took pictures of like weird growths on different trees, like just with my phone. In fact, most of these growths were from like this specific tree, and so pulling them together and masking out the parts that looked butt-like and that looked like they matched the right angle and the lighting, placing them in position, and then the challenge is to blend them with the original bark that's there. So there are just lots and lots of layers of blending that's going on. So you can see how this is almost like the color that butt would have been originally, and you know, through some color correction you can get it to look more like it belongs. There's a lot of really subtle layers. You know, you can toggle them on and off and see the difference it's making, where you're getting some shading where it doesn't look as flat. They need to look like they're butts that are sticking out. So in general, there's just like some darker stuff going around these sides and some brighter stuff at these tops, so that it looks like it has that circular bulbous shape to it. And I know we've had some people ask about this effect, the shield effect that Todd has, the shield tile. Todd was immune to everyone else's imagination. We were talking on set about like what that might possibly look like, and it was, you know, we didn't have like a super well defined anything, but I know the idea got brought up where it was like, well, what if it's like glass or whatever, and just things just go around, which so that by the end when it breaks it's like it's fracturing like glass. And I found this one guy who was doing some really good stuff, but he was using Houdini and Maya to accomplish this effect, and it was for a 3D animation. But I really liked his technique. He was using a normal map for his displacement. And I got thinking like, okay, wait a minute, can you do that in After Effects? Can you use a normal map for displacement? And I ended up running across an Andrew Kramer tutorial for this plugin called Normality. And he had done this tutorial before Element 3D came out way back in the day. And somehow it's a tutorial that I had overlooked. So what I did is I found this plugin, and it's an NVIDIA tool plugin for Photoshop, and it's called just Normal Map Filter. What you can do is you can take an image that you have and you can create a normal map out of that image. Now that's going to, you know, follow all kinds of different parameters that it's up to you to determine the height of that map and what kind of texturing or beveling you want to use. And then you can do a quick little 3D preview of that map, and it's going to move a light around really subtly, and it's going to kind of show you, as that light moves around, the dimensions of your normal map. And I think that there are some better plugins for doing this for more like really high-level texturing and stuff, but this actually worked perfectly for what we needed. So once you have the normal map, you can bring it into After Effects. And in After Effects, you can use Normality, which is a free plugin, by the way, So if we look into the comp where we first get a really close-up look at the shield, we can see that there's a few different things going on. First off, the shield itself has a color, but it's a really light, really vague color, because we wanted this to mostly feel like glass, but giving it a little bit of a tint made it feel more like it actually had like a physical presence and it wasn't just light bending. So if you take normality, you throw it on your layer that has your normal map. If we take this off, you can see that what we actually have here is really, it's just normal map. When you throw normality on, you get all of these different settings that you can mess with: reflection, refraction, and different shading tools. So you create a physical light in After Effects. You place that light in your scene, and then where that light is going to affect how a lot of what normality does actually works. So in normality, you can choose the intensity of that light, how the layers are blended, all kinds of different settings. But what we were most interested in here is the refraction and the reflection. So if we look at what we just have with just the light that we set up, we have, I mean, it's interesting looking. It kind of looks like it has dimension, but you know, it's not like a phenomenal looking effect. You throw on some reflection and you reference the layer of footage that you're actually throwing this on top of, and mess with those parameters a little bit. Make sure you set it to panorama and not spherical. And okay, we're starting to get a little bit of reflection of our environment, so it's like got some glass-like properties, but the refraction is really where the effect shines. So you see, if we switch on the refraction and we reference our footage layer at the bottom of the stack, you can see how here's Mike's eye, but it's bending the light over here. His eyes coming out here, so in his nose and everything, it's all offset. And you can control, that's called the index of refraction. And the amount that's bending is going to make it look like thicker or thinner glass, or whatever your effect is that you're going for. But it ended up working perfectly. Because we had the normal map, we had these individually beveled. And so it just looked like pieces of glass just floating in the air.
So the playground that we tend to shoot at for these things is right next to a pretty busy road.
Exchanges for whatever petty thing you cretins want. In time, it added up.
Let's do that again without this freaking plane or whatever it is.
I still keep wanting to go into kid mode. I don't know why.
Wait for the car. Just turn back to them and say that again. Fetch these cars, dude! What the heck? Go away!
And so road noise has been a big problem, traffic noise in the background. We're really going to have to do a lot of ADR. But we do not have a sound-treated studio, as you can see. We are operating out of my bedroom here. So because of that, this room would be horrible in terms of reverb. It would sound very wrong in the mix. It would sound like you're in a bedroom, not outside in the wilderness or on a playground or something. So I've had to come up with a solution to kill all that reverb and get us a very flat, clean sound file to work with. So this is my solution. First of all, the way I build this is I set our microphone with our pop screen up here on the bed, and then I put this body pillow behind it. And I just have a couple boxes on hand. I'm sure every household has some boxes. It's a little bit of a balancing act here, but it's going to work. Done it before. Okay, so now we've got the basic box shape. What we're going to do is now inline the inside of these boxes with blanket. Now we've got all this padding on the inside. And the last step is to drape the blanket over your head. So you basically throw this over the top, everything. And you're going to go inside of it and talk into the microphone. As you can see, a very imperfect solution, but one that works nonetheless. In those instances where we can't use any of the audio from what we recorded on set, we have to record everything in post. You don't really realize until you sit down as a sound designer how many sounds there are even just in a conversation between two people, and how empty it can sound without those things. And that's where Foley comes in. Foley is more or less the sounds that you make with your body by just your moving around. When you're wearing a jacket and you lift your arm, it's not something you pay attention to, but these types of sounds, you'll notice when they're not there. And it can make your scene, like I said, sound very empty. A lot of the time being spent is watching the video in the edit and realizing, oh, there's certain things missing. Like the scene where Nate takes off the Skyrim helmet.
Okay, really, how old are you, kid?
And sets it on the ground. You couldn't really hear that from the distance the microphone was to him when we were recording his dialogue. It was just like, made no sound. It was totally like silent. So I just grabbed this pot that I used to cook spaghetti with here, put that on my head, and I went like this. And I did that a bunch of different ways, you know. And that goes in very subtly. You really keep the volume level down on that. But without it, it sounds wrong. But I did go out to the playground the other day. This is actually kind of a funny story. The episode needed to be released. I think it was either the next day or the day after the first episode. And so I went out there because we went out during the day to a bunch of playgrounds. How many did we go to? We must have gone to like 5, 6 playgrounds around town. And every single one we went to, there were like a billion kids and, you know, mothers out there. So it's like, okay, this is not going to work. I needed, you know, the sounds on the jungle gym, people going down slides, you know, people walking on kind of the wood plank, being pushed or shoved around, all kinds of stuff. And we could not find a playground that didn't have any kids on it. So I had to go there around midnight. And I was like, okay, for sure, no one's going to be here at midnight. So I'm here at the park, well, at the playground, at the elementary school. It's right now it's I think like 12:45 a.m. I guess it's Tuesday morning now. There's still so much traffic noise, even at freaking 12:30 in the morning. And then on top of that, there was this one guy. I think he was driving by and he saw me on the playground, and he was getting all suspicious. He was like looking at his window, like, "What the heck, man?" I think he might have been trying to call the cops, but he drove by like 3 or 4 times, like poking his head out, like looking for me and stuff. I was like, dude, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I came here at 12:30 in the morning so that I could do this in peace. What are you doing here? It's 12:30. Go home and go to sleep. Well, there's a guy skateboarding out there too, so he was like, and he kept hearing the skateboard like hit the ground, and then he'd fall over and be like, ow, ow. Anyway, that's Foley. So a lot of people may not know this about us because I guess it's something a little more recent. Within the last year or so, we've been doing original music for all of our videos. Got Cubase, and so this is what I use to write all the scores for our videos. So there's kind of a lot that goes into this process that takes a great deal of time. One thing is that generally for film scoring, they're not making their edits according to a click track or according to you know, a piece of music. They're cutting their movie, or we're, you know, editing our movie to what feels right. And then when you give that to the composer, he has to write music that fits into the beat of the edit. That can be a little tricky, but basically you have to come in and set this up manually with your click track so that at certain beats in the video, when certain things happen, your music will, you know, have downbeats on those impactful moments, so that your music will swell at the right time, so that your drums will come in at the right moment, like right on that moment of impact. And so you have to come in and you have to kind of change the tempo of the music so that it will match with the video. So at the beginning, I have it at 105 BPM. Then it goes to 135, and then back down. But you see how that happened right as soon as Landon caught the, as soon as Landon catches the lightsaber, you see that it slows down. But this was done so that so all those beats were happening with action in the video. And then right when Landon decides he's going to head out towards the candy, right about there. Again, it changed just slightly, but it went up to 125 BPM from 122. And that was so that on this impact, it would hit at the right time. As soon as the kids are like coming after, now the music changes. Anyways, you have to do this for the entire video. Unfortunately, for music, it's more or less the very last part of the filmmaking process, the very last thing you do. Because that's the last part of the process, it tends to be the area of time that is generally crunch time. You're getting very close to the time when it needs to be uploaded soon, or it needs to be finished. Your deadline's coming up. And so, because of that, quite often I have to end up writing all of this music like the day before it's uploaded. So it's not overly complicated. It's not like the most brilliantly scored music ever, but I feel like it at least gets the feeling across. And Hans Zimmer actually is a big inspiration for me. I know a lot of music people, they don't love Hans Zimmer because his scores are very simple. But that's kind of the point, I think. In film scoring, you're not trying to show off how brilliantly you can compose all of the pieces of the orchestra and make this complicated thing. You know, there are some scores, like Star Wars, that are very much that way, that work still. But with Hans Zimmer's scores, he writes something that you know elicits the exact right feeling that you're supposed to feel as you're watching the movie. And that's kind of the inspiration I take when I'm writing music. Also because I don't have a lot of time to do it, but just use the basics. Just the most basic things that bring the response that you want, bring the feeling you want out of the scene.
This is it. This is it. It's time to make the final chapter of The Legend of Mason Alexander public so that you guys can watch it. This is the very last step. The whole thing will be done after this. All I have to do is change it from unlisted to public. We did it! We did it! It's over! Hold on. I gotta mark it off on the board. It's over! It's over. We did it. We fetching did it. We fetching did it. It took way longer than we thought it would. It took 4.5 months. 5 months, whatever it was. We did it. We did it. You guys can watch it now.
You know, we kind of put our all into this, and there's still limitations that we have, obviously, you know. But the budget was like very small to non-existent. I mean, it was like made on, if I'm being generous, like $200. $200, yeah. So you know, with a bigger budget, we could do more. But we put our all into this. We tried to make it look as good as we could. We tried to make it sound as good as we can. You know, we really went all out on it, and in storytelling too. You know, that's something that in the past a lot of people that I've met in real life, not like on the internet, have complained about. Like, oh, you guys do just stories like that. And then we'll get like screenwriters coming to us and be like, hey, I can write you guys a story, and you guys can make it. Like, no, shut up, shut up for just a second. We can do that too. We just haven't even like really tried. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time we really tried. I know that it's not really the same as, say, Argonaut 5 or something like that, where we're wanting to tell like a real story. I mean, this is still kind of, I don't know.
Basically just a big joke.
It's still a joke, and it's mostly comedy, which is not quite the same thing. But we did put our all into it. What do you guys think about it? Like, could it have been stronger in certain areas? Where would you like it to go from here? I know that we said earlier we're super burned out on it. We don't want to do something on this scale for Imaginary Warzone again. It may not be worth, the return is not necessarily worth the amount of work that goes into it.
But you know, we haven't tried a medieval Imaginary Warzone yet.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
And we tried to tease as many like short videos as we could, ideas, like the older brothers thing. We can do one that's boys versus girls. We can do one that's medieval themed. You know, there's lots of little Imaginary Warzone videos we can make in the meantime that wouldn't, you know, take this much effort. But where would you like it to go? If you want us to make something on this scale again, you're gonna have to support us on Patreon. You're gonna have to do it.
There's no way around it.
We could make a stretch goal on Patreon. Be like, once we reach this much, then we'll do another
season. Which, to be clear, was how this was funded. Was Patreon?
Yeah, it was funded on Patreon. We used our money from Patreon.
We wouldn't have been able to do this anyways.
But here's the other thing too: is that when you make a sequel to something, it's got to like top the one before it. So if we were to make a season 2, it's got to be even bigger than this one was.
Right.
If we were going to do it the same way. I mean, if we scale back, I don't know if you guys would want to see us scale back on it. But that's kind of where we're at. It's like, we can't do this again.
If we're going to put that much work into something, it's going to be it's going to be Lord of the Rings. Like, it's going to be cool. And we need to do that. It's set in Imaginary Warzone.
Yeah. We don't want to put this much work into something that's not the most sweet, epic, like, full-length movie ever, right? So, if you want to see Imaginary Warzone be that, that's kind of what it would take. It would take some serious support on Patreon and some serious, like, you guys badgering us about it to make it happen. So if you really, really badly want it, you can make it happen, man.
Kill them! Get them! Go! Go!